information over the years, Chris, the more that whole 60s flower power revolution was not a revolution. It was a total diversion. And the whole drugs thing and the free sex thing was all part of the diversion. And, you know, there have been some people from that so-called revolution that have gone on and stayed with their principles. But I've met so many people who were big time into that whole era who are now right straight off the bat standard issue lawyers and business people and stuff like that. And that was just a phase they went through. And when you transform, there's no going back. There isn't. And we can have the fake transformation where you think something's going on or some revolution's taking place, and then it's like a default on the computer. It just defaults back to what it was like before. That's not a transformation. That's just a fad. And we need to realize, I would suggest, that this transformation we're going through now needs every fiber, every bit of our focus. It has to become everything in our lives and not an add-on, because otherwise it's not a transformation, it's a fad, and it will pass by the people that treat it like that. Interestingly, I've mentioned this in the book. I don't know whether you've come across this, but I read a series of articles that are available on the internet by a man who was, it seems, you know, very much went through the 60s revolution and thought it was great, and the music. And I love the music, by the way. You know, I love the 60s music. In fact, I stopped evolving after Donovan musically, really. But and he wrote these articles about the origins of that whole flower power era, and it's extraordinary. They're very, very good. If you put things like the flower power revolution and words to the effect of conspiracy, what have you. I've got my book here at the moment, but I put the key words you put in my book, which will get you these articles. And it's interesting how many key people in the 60s revolution came from military or American intelligence families. Extraordinary. Do you know, one of the things he points out is that, it's just one example, he comes up with many, many, is Jim Morrison of the Doors. You know, his father was an admiral in the American Navy.
Yes.
And
yes.
you know when they had the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which led to a massive expansion into what became the fully fledged Vietnam War. For people who haven't come across that, the Tonkin incident, Gulf of Tonkin incident, was the official story was that a flotilla of American naval ships were attacked by Vietnamese shipping. And that led Lyndon Johnson to use that as an excuse to expand the Vietnam War, which he did as a result of Kennedy's assassination, who didn't want to do that, would seem. Anyway, it comes clear with the passage of time and research that no one attacked that flotilla at all. It was all made up. One of the pilots, American pilots above it, basically said in a book, and I quote in my new book, he flew across. There was no firing from Vietnamese shipping at all. Well, it was just reported by the flotilla, I would say absolutely planned in advance, that we're under fire and all the rest of it. Gulf of Tonkin incident. The admiral in charge of that flotilla was Jim Morrison's father. And what these articles do is make you think very, very seriously about what the force was behind that whole 60s so-called revolution. And it's very clear when you connect the dots from those articles and other sources of information over the years that it was this cabal, this control system that did it. It was a massive diversion. And of course, once the Vietnam War ended, bingo, so did the whole 60s revolution, because it was not a revolution, it was a fad. Mm-hmm. It was connected to a specific event. And what that did was dilute the other more grounded opposition to that war for many years. And, you know, then you add, as you quite rightly say, you bring in the fact that the drugs thing and Timothy Leary and the LSD and all this stuff came from the same source. I mean, the CIA were the people behind the distribution and the emergence of LSD. And you put it all together, that was very clearly a creation of the control system. And we have to avoid all that stuff now. And out of course, the 60s revolution came what we call the New Age movement, which I would say also is a massive diversion. I call the New Age movement the last cul-de-sac before the gold mine. Because when you reject traditional religion and you reject traditional science, and you talk about everything being one and everything's a vibrational field, etc., you're getting dangerously bloody close to understanding the much greater picture that is now coming to light. They don't want that. They need another diversion. They need another exit from the freeway to understanding that's going to take people off into another cul-de-sac. And that, I would suggest, is what the New Age movement is. And it's an outgrowth of that 60s revolution, if you look at it. And a lot of these Eastern gurus who were brought across to Europe and America to fuel that New Age movement, when it was at its peak, it's starting to die out now because people are getting more grounded and they're bringing the pieces together much more powerfully. That's why this period is so powerful. But they were also brought out here to the whole Beatles thing with the Maharishi and all this stuff was all fueling this whole New Age movement. There were some very good things about it. I mean, like I say, understanding that everything is one, which is what the Eastern religions talk about anyway. The fact that everything's a vibration, everything's a different vibration. All these things are very good, but it's also diverted into nonsense, which stops people expanding out into the greater understanding, and that is that you don't need middle people. I don't care if they're Catholic bishops, whether they're Islamic priests. I don't care if they're Ashtar Command or the Great White Bloody Brotherhood in New Age belief. We don't need middle people. We are infinite consciousness. We do not need a conduit to get to what we already are. We need to remember who we are and remove the barriers of belief and programming that stop us experiencing and expressing the true genius and infinity of potential that we really are. That's what we need to do. You don't need middlemen and middlewomen in any shape or form, including Eastern gurus, by the way.
Extremely powerful words, ladies and gentlemen. Cherie, can you go to a couple of the questions on the IM?
Yeah, sure. Louisa said, "Hi, David. What do you think the best way of shielding yourself from this negative reptilian, fearful thinking, controlling influence is?"
Well, it operates on a certain frequency, so it's not to be on that frequency. I have gone into this in detail in the book because it's not just about how things are; it's how things can be different. The reptilian brain is our connection to this moon matrix. It's feeding us this anxiety, fear, worry, all this stuff that humans feel constantly. And it's also a reaction system. If you go into the way the reptilian brain operates, it doesn't think, it reacts. You know, when you're faced with a situation and you react, and then about 5 minutes later, maybe longer, you go, "Oh my God, I wish I hadn't have said that. I wish I hadn't have done that. Oh, I was over the top when what was I doing?" Well, what's going, "Oh, what was I doing?" is the neocortex part of the brain, which thinks things through. But the reptilian brain doesn't think; it just reacts. In connection to another part of the brain called the amygdala. It's constantly scanning the environment.